Hey everybody, it's Carson Gourdie, and I'm here with Darren Winberg of KFXL. It's an ABC Fox affiliate in Lincoln, Nebraska. Illinois is ranked, Nebraska's ranked. What are you kind of expecting from this game, Darren?
Yeah, I'm expecting an electric atmosphere. This is the first time in over a decade that two top AP 25 teams are playing in Memorial Stadium. Friday night, they do a big light show. And I mentioned this on air last week that it was electric when Colorado came. I'm expecting that same type of atmosphere this Friday when the Illini come to town.
Well, Illinois actually gets kind of a cool thing that they get to be a part of. Isn't this Nebraska's 400th consecutive sellout? I mean, that's a streak that dates back to 1962. That's when my dad was born.
Yes, it does. And we're actually getting a guy for our pregame show to talk about that. He actually scored the very first touchdown back in that game in 1962. So it's a pretty cool story. I'm going to maybe ruffle some feathers. It's a 400 consecutive sellout. That's true. But the seats have not been full. I'm just going to throw it out there for the last decade. It's been sold out ticket wise, but selling wise, no.
Oh, well, I will say and I was about to ask you about this because, somebody that loves the history of college football, you looked at, Delaney, and then you looked at Tom Osborne, and I know Frank Solich got fired, but he was a pretty good head coach. I mean, it was shocking to see where Nebraska went under Mike Riley and Scott Frost. Scott Frost seemed like the home run hire of all home run hires. It didn't work out. And I think it's good for college football. It does seem like Nebraska has taken the corner with Matt Rule.
Well, they got their guy with Matt Rule. Matt Rule in year two at every program, whether it was Temple, Baylor, he turns it around, and he's proving it once again as they're off to a 3-0 start, their best since 2016.
Like what's taking Nebraska to that next level is they finally got that quarterback. When you think about Nebraska, you see Taylor Martinez, he's a good runner, or Tommy Frazier, great runner. I mean, Raiola is a serious thrower. Like, what have you seen from him so far?
So I'll give you a quick little backstory. It's kind of cool because obviously his dad played offensive line for Nebraska. His uncle is the defensive line or offensive line coach for Nebraska. So he has ties in Nebraska. He played all around. He was a 5-star recruit. He started in Arizona his junior year. He then moved to Georgia because he had already committed to Georgia. He's a 5-star recruit. Well, Matt Rule and Nebraska never gave up on him, and they brought him for a couple of visits. And last year, he was hooked. He always said it was a dream of him to come back to Nebraska and restore them to glory. Well, guess what? My guy's 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, throwing for over 250 yards a game. Yeah, I would say he's probably done that.
No, I think he's doing pretty good. We just talked to the defensive coordinator today for Illinois, Aaron Henry, and we're like, how do you compare the 2023 Nebraska-Illinois game to this year? And he just kind of smirks because last year was a 27 game. It was super ugly. There was like 8 combined turnovers. What he said about Dylan is like, sure, like it says that he's a freshman up on the paper, but the guy was the top rated high school recruit. And he was like, if you wouldn't know, the way he acts, the way he throws, he looks like a junior or a senior. Have you seen him just kind of have a mature presence?
Yeah, there's a couple plays. One I will reference last week against, again, Northern Iowa. They're not world beaters, but they're 23rd in the FCS, and FCS it's comparable. However, he got him checked down. He checked down. He called 3 guys were going to blitz, checked it down, goes from under center to shotgun, stands there. They're running at him, and he literally stands there, jukes them, runs around, and throws a 50-yard pass across his body to Jalen Lloyd that I would say most seniors wouldn't be able to just see the pre-snap stuff. It reminded me, obviously, I'm not comparing him to Peyton Manning, but he was able to see that, and you're just like, wow, that's a freshman doing that. And just to echo that point, Coach Rule said in a presser 10 days ago that the offense needs to catch up to Dylan. Now, that's no slight on the offense. Yeah. They're just saying he is so much light years ahead because he can see the plays. He studies the playbook. And I'll throw out another stat for you because we're sports. We love stats. He's the first freshman since Marcus Mariota to throw over 70 yards completion in his first 3 games. Marcus Mariota was a Heisman Trophy
Pretty good winner quarterback. Yeah, he won it 2014.
Okay, yeah, there we go. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. There we go. So,
and that's the thing with Marcus. I mean, he made really good decisions. Like he didn't have interceptions, and that's the thing with Dylan. Like I thought maybe there was a couple throws against Colorado where, when I was watching the highlights, I was like, okay, that's probably a freshman throw. But overall though, like what you've just seen the past 3 games, because I haven't been able to watch every Nebraska game. Sure. How do you think he's handled blitzing? And then number 2, do you think Nebraska still wants to establish the run first and then go the play action pass? Like, do you think Dylan could throw it 50 times if he needed to?
So again, 3 games, 3-0. UTEP, Northern Iowa, they're not world beaters. Colorado, they're still out. We don't know. The jury's out on what they are. They have given whatever the offense has or the defense has given, he has taken. By that I mean, if they want to stack 7 in the box, well, he's going to throw the ball, and that's what Northern Iowa did. He threw it. He picked apart their first drive. I think it was a 9-play, 80-yard drive. 8 of them were passes, including the touchdown, because they stacked the box and they wanted him to beat them. The next series, they wanted him to throw it. So what did they do? They ran it. They ran it down their throats. They have a 3-headed monster with Dante Dadell, who's a transfer from Oregon, Emmett Johnson and Ramir Johnson. And they're bruisers. Dowdell is kind of like the scat back. And it's like whatever they give, he will take. And you don't have that luxury when you have a freshman quarterback, which is why I say he's playing way above his age. Let's just say that.
So the offense, that always gets the headlines, right? That's a big name with Dylan. You guys have a really good defensive line, right?
Yeah, Ty Robinson. Their front 4, literally, they've held 3 opponents under 10 points as far this season, right? And you can talk about they haven't played world beaters, but when you're able to hold teams, get out in front, and just rush the passer, it's essentially, it allows them to make the opposing team one-dimensional, which is what they've done. Now, here's some hope for the Illini fans. Northern Iowa gashed Nebraska between the 20s last week.
Really?
They did. However, they weren't able to punch it in once they got into the red zone. So, I would admit Illinois' got a lot better talent on the offensive side, but Nebraska did give up a lot of plays. They gave up nearly 400 yards last game.
A big issue or a question that people have had for Brett Bielema is that the rushing attack just has not been as strong. Kansas, the Jayhawks bottled up the passing game. Like if Illinois doesn't get a pick 6 right before halftime, they might be on the losing end of that Kansas game. So I know they are trying to pick up that running game. So that would be pretty vital. I think it's good for the Big Ten that they're back. And I think it's going to be interesting. Illinois, on paper, you're seeing, hey, there's a freshman quarterback. Let's get some pressure on him. Let's get a couple interceptions. I mean, Illinois leads the country in interceptions. That's going to be the key to make Dylan uncomfortable. I see a low-scoring game. When you look at the Vegas line, they're kind of predicting a 24-17 Nebraska victory. I think it's going to be right around that ballpark. Like, I don't think we're going to see a shootout. I think we're going to see 2 physical teams, and which quarterback makes the big play during that third quarter.
Nebraska has outscored their opponents 51-0 in the second quarter. So for the Illini to stay in this game, they need to go into half, and it needs to be a 1-possession game because Nebraska's yet to put together a full game. First half, they've jumped out to big leads, and then the second half, they're not scoring any points, a couple of field goals. No, there's been some missed opportunities. But to counter that point, you could say Coach Rule and company, they don't want to put a bunch on tape. This is the start of the Big Ten season, and it's, 4th game in? So they kind of don't want to put everything on tape to start. So I think that's why they're like, a tale of 2 halves, you could say. But I think if Illinois wants to stay in this game, they need to jump on them early. I don't think Raiola is going to make too many mistakes, but our running backs are prone to fumble, so there could be a turnover either way. Whoever wins the turnover battle, as cliche as that sounds, probably is going to come away with the dub on Friday.
Well, I Illinois' head coach Brett Bielema, he used to be at Wisconsin, right? He was a big rushing attack. Fun fact: I was in the wormhole on Google. 2014, he was actually offered the Nebraska job, but
oh really?
But he's stuck at Arkansas, so that I thought that was interesting.
Oh, that is funny.
He said this quote 3 years ago, and I always remembered it. He said, "If you pass for 250 yards, you have a chance to win. If you run for 250 yards, you are going to win." I think that's a big part, like just Illinois in general. You give up 300 passing yards to Raiola, you can't let that ground attack smack you around. And I think that's probably the same thing. Like if Illinois got their running game, I mean, it would take the offense to probably a different level. Big picture, Vegas does have Nebraska as an 8-point favorite. It's gone up to 10. It's gone back down to 8.5, but it's been fluctuating between 8 and 10. I don't know if you want to pick a point spread, but what is your kind of general vibe? Like, what are you kind of feeling about this game?
My vibe. So, wise guys are smart. I equate them. I lived in Vegas.
You like the sharp money.
Yes. So I will go. I didn't look at the over under, but I would take the under if it's
43.
43. Yeah, I take the under, and I think Nebraska wins 21-10.
21-10.
So they cover and the under. I don't think Illinois is going to be able to score. They weren't able to score last year, and the defense is better than they were last year. Now, granted, the weather was, if I remember right, the weather I don't think was the greatest.
It was a Friday night game. It was kind of chilly, and that was
20-6 or something, right? Like it was
20-7. It was the worst game that Illinois played last year. That was the first 6 games. So in the first 6 games last year, Illinois was averaging 18 points a game. After the Nebraska game, they just hit a switch and they scored 30 points after that. Nebraska was the worst offensive game they played all year. And Luke Altmaier didn't play well. And last year, Illinois didn't have a lot of deep wide receiver threats. The big guy was Isaiah Williams, who's now on the Detroit Lions. He was great for a screen pass, but they couldn't go down the field. It's been big for Illinois. They got Pat Bryant, a wide receiver. He's really developed this year. He already has 4 passing touchdowns. And then they got a transfer from Ole Miss and UTSA. His name's Sakari Franklin. He actually leads all of college football in career receptions. He's been around for a million years. And he's played really well. He's the guy, 3rd and 4, Luke Altmaier needs a first down. He's going to target Franklin. He's done really well so far this year. Pat Bryant's going to be the home run guy. So when it's 2nd and 1 and they want to take a shot to the end zone, Pat's got the speed and the athleticism to catch that 50-50 ball. Now, Franklin can too, but Franklin's been more used as, hey, buddy, we need to get the first down so far. So I think this offensive passing attack for Illinois is really taking the next level. The big question is the running game, because it's hard to predict a motor for an offensive line. Like on paper, you got these 320-pound guys, you got J.C. Davis transferring, you got Getsky back. But it just, the past couple of years, sometimes the offensive line just doesn't click. And it's going to be tough against Nebraska if you can't get 120, 150 yards on the ground.
I would agree with that. So with that being said, I will keep my original pick, but now I'm like, maybe you guys get 17.
I would watch out for Franklin. I think that's going to be a big guy that I think he's going to have a better game than Pat.
Okay.
That's my gut.
We've got a great game, 400 sellout, Nebraska taking on Illinois. Start of Big Ten play. The 3-0 Illini, what do they bring to the table this year that they didn't last year, my guy?
Yeah, I think a big part was last year, the secondary was really banged up. They gave up a lot of passing yards because in 2022, Illinois actually had the number 1 scoring defense in the entire country. They had a bunch of NFL players with Devin Witherspoon, who's now a really good player on the Seattle Seahawks, number 5th pick overall. Sidney Brown had his moments, Quan Martin. So going into 2023, people were like, oh, like we'll just develop new guys. That's what Illinois thought. Bottom line, the defense really took a step in the wrong direction. So this year they really retooled. They brought back Matt Bailey. He came back from injury. He's been playing really well. They brought in a couple transfers with Torrey Cox. And then they brought in another transfer, Terrence Brooks from Texas. He was all Big 12 mention last year. And then Xavier Scott has just taken another level. He has 4 interceptions already for the Illinois Fighting Illini. So they're going to try to be ball hawks. They're going to try to lock down the secondary. Offensively, I think the passing offense has taken the next step. Luke Altmaier, the quarterback, actually lost the starting position last year at the end of the season to John Paddock. He won it back, and he's been a lot more confident. He's been more likely to pull that trigger on that 50-50 ball. And he also has better personnel this year. Last year, his big wide receiver was Isaiah Williams. And people that follow Illinois, everybody has a soft spot for him. He's a guy that came in as a quarterback, and when Brett Bielema told him move to wide receiver, he agreed to it and didn't transfer. And he turned out to be one of the best Illinois wide receivers. But he was good for screen passes. He was good for slants. He wasn't a guy that could stretch the field vertically. So that limited Illinois' offense. This year, they got Pat Bryant. He's been on campus for a couple years, but he's really taken the next step physically and also as a leader. He was named as a team captain. He already has 4 touchdowns. He's the guy that I would expect on like a 2nd and long. They want to take that shot to the end zone. He's the guy that Luke Altmaier is going to go to. But a big guy that people need to talk about for Illinois is Jakari Franklin. He's a transfer from Ole Miss and UTSA. He's been around college football for 6 years. Actually leads college football in active receptions. He's been around forever. When it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 7, and Illinois has to move the chains, he's going to be the guy that Luke Altmaier calls on. So I would say those are the 2 big differences. The passing game's better, and they defend the pass better. And that's going to be big against Dylan Raiola. I heard he's a pretty good quarterback that's got a cannon. So Illinois is going to have to step it up for sure.
But we've kind of talked about already, but it's the 400th consecutive sellout. It's going to be electric. Offensively, that's going to affect Illinois, and it's affected every team that's come. This is Nebraska's 4th straight home game. There's something to be said about being able to sleep in your own bed, practice, and get into those routines. Has Coach Bielema and the Illinois or Fighting Illini, have they talked about pumping in crowd noise, and have they talked about the noise and what it's going to affect?
Yeah, I was going to practice, or I was going to the practice today, and then media availability for the offensive coordinator. And I'm driving my car, I'm driving my Jeep, and I hear, what the heck is that noise? And I turn down, and they're blasting fan noise throughout the practices. So they understand that this is a huge game for Nebraska. Like, this is a rejuvenated program with Matt Rule, 400 sellout. I mean, absolutely. They've been cranking up the crowd noise. And last week against Central Michigan, they had a lot of silly penalties, delay of games, false starts, and Barry Lunney wasn't happy about it. Like, they understand that they're going into a tough environment, and they can't really avoid those lulls in the passing game. That's why I think it's going to be huge for Illinois to try to get that running game established. That's something that we didn't see against Kansas, but no, they know. People respect Nebraska's crowd. It's going to be a loud one. They're practicing.
You guys are stout. You've always been known for great defense. What is it about this group this year that separates you guys from the past?
Yeah, well, I would say that's tough, because the one part I would say was the previous 2 years, they had a really good pass rush with these 2 NFL defense linemen, Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph. Their nickname was the Law Firm. They would stack quarterbacks like crazy. They actually left this year. So Illinois brought in some transfers to replace those guys, and guys that have been around the program but that haven't played a lot, like Dennis Briggs from Florida State, T-Rod Edwards. Against Kansas, Kansas ran the ball pretty well. Kansas ran for 180-something yards. They were getting 7 yards a pop, but Lance Leipold kept throwing the ball with Jalen Daniels, and Daniels has had a serious interception issue this year. I actually think that's one thing that hasn't been proven yet with Illinois, whether they can stop the run consistently. But at Central Michigan, the energy was up, the juice was up, but we got to see if they can do that against Nebraska's competition. But the defense is obviously 100% better than it was last year. They gave up 30 points per game last year. The secondary is legit. They are proven guys. Matt Bailey has been a good player for 3 years. Xavier Scott has developed. And when you bring in guys like Briggs and Brooks that have had playing time for 2-3 years, it's a competent secondary for sure. And I don't want to cram in too many stats for viewers, talk too much inside baseball. but pretty good linebackers too for Illinois. Two guys to watch is Gabe Yakis and Seth Coleman. Seth Coleman will be an NFL draft pick next year.
And so you kind of touched on your quarterback. Do you think that kind of humbled him in a way to be able to come back, get benched, and then come back and really shine?
Yeah, he came in with huge expectations. He was the 4-star at Ole Miss who was a good player, but he just wasn't as good as Jackson Dart, and it's kind of like, okay, whatever. I can't play at the SEC. I'm going to move to Illinois and get some playing time. I thought he played well down the stretch of 2023, but he got a concussion. You know the New York Yankees story about Wally Pipp?
Yeah, of course.
Got the headache, and then Lou Gehrig replaced him. Well, that's what happened to him. He got injured the last drive against Minnesota, had a concussion, and John Paddock the next week threw for 520 yards, broke the school record, and he lost the job. But it hurt Luke Altmaier. He said, he questioned, he was like, why was this part of God's plan? It was a struggle for him. But he's a guy with great faith, and the teammates say it made him more of a leader. I think it made him more aggressive, and he's really taken those shots on those deep balls. He is a much better passer this year. Last year he had 13 turnovers in 10 games. This year so far he has none.
Appreciate you. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Don't miss a video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today for more Central Illinois news.